Welcome to the Hopeful Divorce. I'm Hope, your family law friend. After working in family law firms for many years and watching thousands of divorces play out, I've learned some things about what does and doesn't work, and I'm here to share.
This question is from the Divorce Men subreddit. Am I being unreasonable asking for jewelry to be valued during separation? My wife and I are separating and trying to work through finances. She wants to go through my business, bank accounts, and everything properly, which I understand. But when I asked her to get her jewelry valued, she said I was being petty and that the jewelry is, quote, for our daughters. I said I understand that, but everything we have built is ultimately for our daughters, and we still need to value the assets properly so the split is fair. She then said the jewelry was gifted by me and later said she basically doesn't have any jewelry, which just made the conversation more difficult and made me second guess myself. I'm not trying to take jewelry off of my daughters or be nasty. I just think if we are valuing assets properly, then jewelry, watches, cars, business interests, cash, and property should all be disclosed and valued fairly. Am I being unreasonable for asking for jewelry to be included in the asset valuation? The short answer to your question is no. You are not being petty. It is completely natural. If it is something that was purchased during the marriage, it is a marital asset and it should be valued and it should be included in your equalization. It isn't common, I will say, for jewelry to be included in the assets. It is often, for many people, the most expensive jewelry that they own is the engagement ring that was given or wedding rings. That usually is the most expensive jewelry that a lot of people have. And that's usually given before the marriage and it's a gift. So in that respect, it often is not included, in the valuation. Most lawyers will tell you it just kind of doesn't matter, even when it's an extremely expensive ring. But if there was jewelry that was purchased during the marriage with marital assets, then yes, it should be part of the division. Now, since you have said that the jewelry is going to your daughters, what might be best is to have it appraised and have it clear who is responsible for keeping it and when are the daughters going to receive it and who is responsible for insuring it until your daughters are of the age that you agree they will receive it. These are the kinds of things. Now, actually adding it into the equalization, since it is intended for your daughters, and if your wife isn't using the jewelry right now, and if she is using the jewelry and it is hers and her intention is to someday give it to the daughters, well, then that is part of the equalization. It goes in her column as one of the assets she gets. And, sometimes jewelry can easily be $30,000, $50,000, things like that. It's not nothing. So having that count in her column for equalization is completely reasonable and fair. So getting it appraised, you're not being petty for asking for that. But since the intention is to give it to your daughters, I would recommend that you fight for ensuring that it is in your settlement agreement that is going to your daughters and the age that is going to them. And if your wife is going to insure it and all of that, that's the better, I would say, case to make for it. Now, one of the things about jewelry and really about all personal property that I think is hard for a lot of people to get used to, that the courts really don't care about it. It's kind of surprising, but even really expensive things like furniture and TVs, you might easily have, $50,000 worth of stuff in your house or $100,000 worth of stuff in your house. If you have, some artwork, if you have some things that, nice furniture, nice, electronics, things like that, it can total a lot of money. And for the most part, the courts just do not care. The courts do not want to get involved in that type of case. And exactly why, I'm not sure. I can just tell you that, I've worked for many lawyers and they will tell clients, if you have a Picasso then, maybe that is worth including in the valuation. If you have something that's millions of dollars, a major asset, then that counts. But for the most part, the courts really only care about real estate, investment accounts, that kind of thing. Vehicles to some extent they are included, but the courts really don't care that much about anything else other than those major categories. And I think particularly with jewelry, it's hard because I understand why this man is upset. You're going through our business with a fine-tooth comb and making sure every single thing is counted. And if this jewelry was expensive, which it sounds like it was, he has a lot of pride in that. He worked hard and he gave this gift to the wife during the marriage, and now she's saying it doesn't matter. And that has got to sting. And I completely understand that. But unfortunately, the courts kind of don't care that much about it. Taking a quick pause in today's episode to remind you this podcast is built around your questions. If you're navigating divorce, separation, property division, child support, custody, co-parenting, blended families, or anything in between, you don't have to figure it out alone. Chances are, if you're wondering about something, someone else is too. You can submit your questions anytime through my website at hopefuldivorce.com. Whether it's a big, complicated situation or a simple, what does this legal term mean, or why does this happen this way? All questions are welcome. I read every submission, and your question could be featured in an upcoming episode to help not just you, but others going through similar experiences. So if something's been on your mind, send in your question. Let's keep the conversation moving forward. This question is from the Divorce Men subreddit. My ex won't agree to the kids meeting my current girlfriend. Been dating the same girl for over 4 months now. I have already met her kids. Great kids, and things are going great. I brought up introducing the current girlfriend to the kids with my ex, and she lost it. I've been separated for over 2 years. We had an agreement that we would introduce the significant other to each other before the kids. I want to keep the peace with the ex and want to be respectful. I can't help feeling as though this is a controlling thing, as she is fearful that if things don't pan out, the kids will seriously be hurt. I lived in her continuous fear-riding anxiety for 13 years and don't have the same views of the world. I don't want to cancel the meet, but am definitely worried about exposing my current girlfriend to my ex, who has very loud opinions and very vocal with them, even when it's not asked for, instead of playing nice. Would really like to see how small interactions go with the children first. Just not sure if I want to follow the verbal agreement my ex and I have agreed to. My current girlfriend knows of this agreement, and I'm also worried how this will look to her with me disregarding a previous agreement. All advice is welcome. When to introduce a new partner to your children can be a really challenging decision for people once you've moved on after divorce. Now, it's somewhat common that people will have some sort of agreement about new partners and when they interact with the children. It's certainly not in every divorce, but it's somewhat common. I see it in separation agreements pretty frequently. And it usually says something to the effect that that both people agree not to introduce new romantic partners to the children until it's a committed long-term relationship and that you've been together exclusively for at least 6 months. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of evidence out there that it's really not good for children to meet all of your potential new partners too frequently. Because when you're dating, a lot of times things can seem so great and seem like they're going to go forever. And then bam, out of nowhere, it's over. And children don't understand that that's how dating works. And they become very emotionally attached to your new partner, and then they're gone. And there's just not the same level of commitment, usually, if you've only been dating for a few months or a very short time, for them to stay in the lives lives of the children. So it is something that you need to think about and you need to be careful of. So that's why it's somewhat common that people have some sort of agreement to this. And this couple seems to have an agreement that they will meet the new partners first. I have seen that, but it's less common that you actually have that. And this sounds like it's an informal agreement. It's not, part of their parenting plan or a court order. And, this is the type of thing that even if it is in your separation agreement, it's kind of hard to get the court to enforce it. I mean, if you're really, not following it, and if your child has met 4 new partners of yours in the last 6 months, that is detrimental to the child. And if you have it in your agreement that you would wait 6 months or wait until it's a serious relationship, you might get a judge to order something like contempt. But, I think most lawyers would probably tell you it's not worth it to use the courts for that. It's just really not what the courts are really designed for. It's something that you need to work out on your own. And so his question is a good one. Do I follow this verbal agreement? My recommendation to him is yes, you made an agreement. You may not be legally required to, but you said you were going to do this. And you need to have a healthy co-parenting relationship with your children's other parent. That is your responsibility as a parent, to do everything you can to have a good relationship with the other parent. One of the ways to do that is to follow whatever you agreed to, whether or not it's a binding legal document that holds you to it or not. And so my recommendation in this case, since you already mentioned it to her and she got very upset, is that you reach out to her again and you ask to meet her. Meet her for coffee, meet her in some neutral place and sit down and have a conversation. Don't do this over text. Don't mention it in the parking lot when you're doing an exchange with the kids. Don't do this. Sit down and talk. Make it important, okay? It doesn't have to be a long conversation, but set up some time where you can talk uninterrupted and explain to her that you want to introduce him to your girlfriend and ask her to please explain what she's concerned about, because she was upset the first time you brought it up. So listen to her concerns. And I know that may be hard because you have a history and it sounds like you feel she's over anxious about things and worries about things that don't really need to be worried about. That's part of the reason why your marriage didn't work, was because of her anxiety. I get that, but she is the other parent to your children. So spend a little time to hear her out and don't just placate her. Listen to her concern. What is she afraid about? And before you go into the conversation, remember, she is doing this because she's afraid. She's not doing this to be a jerk to you. If you want to have a good co-parenting relationship with her, you got to figure out how to make things work. And one of the ways you can do that is to just say, you know what? Fear is driving her and she's afraid because she loves our children. It's annoying for you, but it's good for your children that she's worried about them and that she loves them. Okay, that part is good. So try to focus on that and just listen to what she has to say. What specific things is she worried about? Is she worried that the girlfriend is going to be sleeping over? Is she worried about what kinds of questions she's going to have to answer about the girlfriend? Is she worried that the girlfriend is maybe not a good mother? Is she worried that the girlfriend is going to try to replace her or cut into her territory and become a wedge in the middle of your co-parenting relationship? Those are valid things for her to be afraid of. And so let her express those things. If they are things that you can easily address, then just put her fears to rest. Say, yeah, she's not going to be sleeping over, for at least X amount of time or whatever concerns she has. Yes, she's a great mother and her kids are doing really well. And, her whatever things that you reasonably can, that you feel comfortable doing, address her concerns. And let her feel heard and say, okay, I've heard everything that you've said and I'm going to think about it and then I'm going to let you know. And then give it another week or two. Give it a little more time to digest. Okay, 4 months really isn't that long. to be dating. And it's okay to introduce, a partner after 4 months. I'm not saying that it's too early, but it's also not that long. It can go a few more weeks. And taking this time to get some alignment from your ex that this is okay, it's going to be better for your kids. I understand that you're afraid that she's controlling you. And, maybe she is to a certain extent, but you've got to decide, do you want what's best for your kids or do you want to be right? Because you may be right about the fact that, hey, she's trying to control you and she doesn't have a say in this. That is right, but you can't be right. And in this situation, also do what's best for your kids. If you just cling on to I'm right and she's wrong, that doesn't help your kids. So take a little effort to have a conversation with her, hear her out, address whatever concerns you can. And look, if she starts demanding all these rules for you and your new girlfriend, well, you don't have to do that. I'm not saying you have to just do whatever she says. Of course not. But hear her out. And then after 2 weeks, say, I would like you to meet my new girlfriend. We're going to meet at, how about this day and this time, whatever. And if she won't schedule the meeting, if she is inappropriate during the meeting and starts yelling at your girlfriend and says nasty things, you do not have to have your new girlfriend put up with your ex trashing her or being inappropriate. Just get up and leave if she's really being out of hand. But if you've talked to her first and kind of set the stage, it's less likely to go that way. And if it does, well, then look, you've kept your side of the bargain. You cannot control your ex's behavior. And if she's going to be crazy and toxic about this, then there's nothing you can do. You've got to live your life. I think you owe it to your children to have a positive co-parenting relationship with your other parent as much as you possibly can. So you make your best effort, and then she's going to do what she's going to do. I hope it goes well for you.
Thanks for listening to The Hopeful Divorce. If this episode was helpful to you, share it with someone who might need it, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And as you deal with challenges of separation, divorce, and rebuilding your life, always remember the wise words that Christopher Robin told his friend Winnie the Pooh. You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep moving forward.